Hello, everybody. It's such a pleasure to welcome today Debbie De Souza. Now, you all know Debbie De Souza is a film producer along with Dinesh, her husband, and the De Souza production that they produced the incredible movie that screened everywhere in America, in Mar-a-Lago premiere, and they did a lot into uncovering uncomfortable truths. But I would like to dig a little bit more in introducing you in your background. Debbie, you were born in Caracas, Venezuela, so you are a real Venezuelan. We want today to have a talk about what's really going on over there. But the Venezuela you grew up in was much like America, right? Before it, the socialist America, let's say. But that has changed dramatically and is now a socialist, pure socialist country. You refuse to see America follow these paths. As a warning to Americans, you created a presentation to show the path that America is taking by repeating many of the same policies that destroyed Venezuela. You are an advocate for conservative Latinos, and you hope to educate them in the importance of voting for a party that reflects the principles of most Hispanics people. You have a unique perspective because of your dual nationality, reflecting both your Mexican American heritage from your mother's side and as well as your Venezuelan root from your father. During the Obama years, you have been active in your community and served as president of a local TFRW club. Besides the political advocacy, you have been singing since the age of 4, and your love for music continued to today. You started singing in your birth country of Caracas, Venezuela, in a weekly televised show called Las Voces Blancas. In your teen years in the Rio Grande Valley, you continue to sing as a school choir. So today, you also produced the Dinesh D'Souza podcast, which premiered in January 19, 2021, and ended in 2026, but will continue in a different way. You are married to conservative best-selling author and filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza, and together you have a blended family of 3 grown children and 2 grandchildren. Thank you for joining the show. That was a great back. I have to say it all because I think it's so fascinating.
Thank you. Well, thank you too for having me. And I just want to say thank both of you too for really taking it for the team. You two have been through the ringer. I mean, you know what it's like to have lawfare thrown at you, better than most people do. And so I thank you for that and for your advocacy as well, because it does take people that have been through it to educate those that have not so that we can live in a much freer, not just America, but world.
Yeah, well, thank you, Debbie. It's very kind of you to say, and you and Dinesh as well. And with your wonderful films and your books and your public speaking, you're doing great work, obviously, explaining the corrosion that's really destroying America from within, and that is the weaponized Department of Justice, which your husband, of course,
Oh yeah.
witnessed firsthand had his own firsthand account. I did. Simona, by extension, had. Her harassment, but certainly there's so many. We could have been talking all these years about something so much more interesting than the weaponized justice and corruption within the institutions. And but unfortunately, or fortunately, it did become such a major topic in America, and we do have people like yourself, Dinesh, and ourselves at the forefront of trying to explain what that is and to assure it never happens again. So thank you for that.
Yes, and thank you. And I know we talked a little bit before the show about the little bit of trivia that I wanted to throw your way before
Oh,
we
yeah.
kind of get into the nitty-gritty of Venezuela and what just happened. But so the name Venezuela means Little Venice.
Oh, we are siblings, Italians and Venezuelans.
Yes. In 1499, Amerigo Vespucci
Oh,
saw Venezuela, and it reminded him so much of Little Venice because he went to the part that is called Lake Maracaibo, right? So there's like a little opening at the top of the map. I don't know if you've noticed it. It's kind of like it's a little bit of a dip, and it's called Lake Maracaibo, but it's really part of the Caribbean, and it goes all the way down. And when he went in there, the indigenous people had houses that were on top of the water, like everywhere. And so when he saw that, he was like, oh, Little Venice. We have to name it, and I think, I'm not sure the Italian name of it, but it turned into Venezuela, which means Little Venice. And
Little Venezia. Now
so
makes
the
sense.
yes.
Even
So so from the very beginning, Venezuela has had a lot of Italian influence. In fact, Italians make up a great portion of the population in Venezuela. Millions of Italians and descendants of Italians. I'm one of them. My grandmother was part Italian. So, Venezuela just is well, was a wonderful, wonderful, true melting pot. I mean, it had Europeans, it had indigenous, it had Afro, blacks from the Caribbean. It was just a beautiful mix of people. And to be honest, when I lived there, we never really even like looked at each other differently. I mean, there were just so many different people, mixtures and everything. The person that started the division, the animosity, the taking down of European statues, that was all Hugo Chavez. He did that. He started that and started dividing the country. Like, I think you know where I'm going with this.
yes, of course. And
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have been
So,
very vocal about these patterns that you
yes.
really were an activist, a political voice, very much heard. And you wanted to prevent America to go toward what you experienced in Venezuela. But now that I know we're siblings, little
Yeah.
Venezuela, Italian, Venezuelan,
That's
I feel
right.
even more, I can see the personalities. Very,
That's right. We're very
right?
passionate. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Latinos and
yeah.
Italians are not much difference.
That's right. That's right. Yes. No, but that's really why I started doing these presentations, long ago. As I mentioned before the show, 26 years ago, I was just minding my own business. I was having my children, and I was still very interested in Venezuela because, as you know, my father's family were Venezuelan. My mother, I have a very unique perspective in the Latino community because I'm half Mexican American and half Venezuelan. And so I really saw the parallels immediately. When I started kind of digging into who Hugo Chavez was, I realized that he was a communist. I mean, he was a just blatant communist, Marxist, loved the Castro brothers, loved Hitler. I mean, he was also anti-Semitic. So all of the things that we're not, he was. And I started seeing a pattern, and I told my grandparents, I said, you cannot vote for this man. This is pre, his first election in 99. I said, you can't vote for this man. He is bad news. He's going to nationalize industry in Venezuela. He's going to turn it into a socialist country. And my grandparents were like, there's so much corruption. They had a two-party system in Venezuela, much like America. And the
Mhm.
center right party was unfortunately self-destructing. I mean, they were also corrupt. And so people were like, you know what? I don't like this party and I don't like this party. I want something different. So in comes Hugo Chavez as a third party candidate, and the left wing party supported him because they knew that that would be the only way that they could actually win an election and and really take over the country. So Hugo Chavez went in there, and of course he lied to the Venezuelan people, to the Americans, that he was not a socialist, that he was not a monster. He went on and on, he did the media rounds and said that he was not going to nationalize industry. And wouldn't you know it, that's the first thing he did. And it just went downhill from there. And in 2004, Venezuelans had had enough. In fact, my grandparents that voted for him were very upset that they had, and they wish they hadn't. But at that point, it was too late. But he did say, if you're not happy with me, I will be happy to step down. You just, say it, and I will not run for president again. I won't run for reelection. You can recall me, do whatever you need. So when it came time to recall him in 2004, he decided that he was going to cheat. And
Mhm.
that is the beginning of the end of Venezuela. He basically hired some people to to really make a machine that would change votes for him. And that machine was called Smartmatic.
Mhm.
And this is not a conspiracy theory. I mean, this is what actually happened. So he decided that he was going to, he was going to stay in power no matter what, but he wanted to make it look like a democracy. So he wanted to make it look like he actually did not lose that election, the recall election. And so here come these mathematicians who built this machine for him. By the way, Smartmatic does have machines all over the world, as you guys probably know this.
Mm.
And it was made for him to be able to swap the percentages. And so I believe that they did a kind of a straw poll for of people going in to vote, and they noticed that about 59% of the people were like against Maduro. I mean, I'm sorry, against Chavez. And about 40% were for him because he still had a strong hold
Mm.
on people. He was still kind of trying to convince people that he was like their savior, right? So it's the same as America, right? Look, you're like, how do Democrats, keep voting for Democrats? That's how.
Seems
So
like a script, right? They followed the
that's
same.
right. It's exactly the same script. And so unfortunately, this is how it went down. Hugo Chavez kept winning elections one after another by cheating. And he changed the Constitution. He stacked the Supreme Court. He basically made it to where the opposition had no power at all.
Wow.
So
But historically, how did leftism become ingratiated within Latin America? Was
Mm.
it a Cold War function? Was it a function of the Cold War? Were some movements supported by the Soviet Union, and then you had these various proxy groups that evolved, or is there just something inherent within Venezuela? And I don't want to generalize, but around the area of Venezuela that made leftism prevalent, that allowed people like Chavez and later Maduro to emerge? Or, I mean, because I think a lot of people want to understand like where this even comes from. Is it just a
mhm,
social thing? Was it
mhm,
imposed top down? Was it organic? And then what really ultimately led to these type of people that then stole elections? Because
yeah.
if it's so popular, they wouldn't have to steal elections. So if you could kind of let the audience know how it all started and how it ended up in such a miserable end, I guess, is really the question.
Right. So you're right. Post World War II, and the Soviets, so the infiltration of communism in Venezuela really kind of originated in Cuba,
Okay.
Mm.
because the Venezuelan regime now, in fact, there are so many Cubans in the Venezuelan government. They're intertwined. And so, yes, the ideology, that's how it stemmed. And it just literally went down. And in Venezuela, even in I want to say 30s and 40s, there was a huge communist push for Venezuela. My father actually in the 50s fought this. I mean, he was super anti-communist. And they finally stabilized the economy, and American oil companies went in there and really started helping the economy in Venezuela. And this is why it's so comical that people are like, oh, we're stealing the Venezuelan oil. Well, first of all, we help refine the Venezuela oil in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. And
Mhm.
so, when Hugo Chavez nationalized the oil industry in Venezuela, he kicked out all those oil companies, and he did steal the oil, the refined oil, because as you know, it's crude oil. Venezuela has probably the largest crude oil deposits in the world, but crude oil doesn't do anything on its own.
Exactly. That's
right?
the point I've been making many times. Like, if
Yes,
it's the case,
yes.
it would be Saudi Arabia right now.
That's right. Exactly. And so Americans going in there and fixing all of that will only help Venezuelans restabilize, rebuild their country. And it'll also help America. I mean, just think about it. Wouldn't you love to go to the pump and fill up your gas with $1.50 gas? I mean, wouldn't that be amazing? What what is so anti-American about that, right? People are like America first, America first. Well, I mean, hello, that's going to be definitely America first right there. But yeah, it's very complex. And right now, I have to say that while I'm very happy, ecstatic, really, and the Venezuelans are jumping up and down for joy because Maduro is where he needs to be, there is still a large Chavista regime still in charge of Venezuela. Delcy
Mhm.
Rodriguez is now the interim president, which really she's not even president because Maduro wasn't even president, right? He stole that election. And so he was a usurper, as she is a usurper, but you know that's what they have. And Maduro's son, Nicolásito, they call him, or the prince, he's still there, and he's definitely mad that they took
Mhm.
his dad, and he's involved in government. So, you know, who knows what he's going to do. So I feel like the Venezuelans right now cannot have a transitional government that is the opposition right now because unfortunately there's too many Chavistas that could easily come in and easily do a coup and remove them. So
Mhm.
we first have to make sure that we get rid of all the Chavistas. I mean, that is like crucial. We have to. Because if we don't, it's going to be nearly impossible for someone like Maria Corina Machado, who is a friend of mine and I adore her and I think she would make an amazing president and I cannot wait until she is, but I don't know that she can do it right now. And I
Mhm.
think Trump feels the same way. I think Trump and Rubio think that it's she's not ready because the Venezuelan people are still too entrenched in this horrific regime that is still, you know, they're still incarcerating people. They let go of like, I don't know, hundreds of political prisoners, but they didn't really do it because they wanted to do it. They did it because they were under pressure to do it by the Trump administration. But to be sure, they can do it again, you know. They tell basically this is what happens. So Delcy gets in there and tells the Venezuelans that she's in charge and that
Mhm.
things are going to be the same as they've always been with Maduro, right? And then Trump comes in, talks to her, tells her, "No, you're not, you know, you're not going to do this. This is how you're going to follow this script." And she's like, "Okay, yes, sir. Okay, fine, huh?" And then she turns around and says the exact opposite to the Venezuelan people. So she's kind of playing two sides. And that's a big problem.
Debbie, you clearly know much more than anyone I've seen in the streets protesting against this liberation, I call it a liberation of Venezuela from Maduro. We have seen here in Italy a bunch of protests in the streets. They might feel connection with the little Venice, I don't know, but actually don't know anything about Venezuela. And most recently, our Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, addressed this indoctrination from the radical left in Italy, who convinced them that some sort of violation of international law happened here and that we kind of overpowered another country from United States for the oil. Well, you already explained why oil is not the issue. Can you explain, as someone who knows Venezuela and who is also in America, what is the threat of somebody like Maduro right aside of Florida, Miami? Can you explain that to most of people that have no clue?
That they have no clue about. Okay, so can you rephrase that again? Are you talking about what Maloney just said, saying that the leftists do not understand what the Venezuelans are going through right now? Is that
Yeah, well, she's basically saying you don't know anything about Venezuela, but we're
right?
trying to say that, interpret what is happening there, the feeling of
Yeah.
the people there, and they're trying to tell people that this is a violation of international
Oh,
law.
right. Of
And they
course.
try to
Yes.
convince people that Donald Trump did it
Right.
for the oil Venezuela. Now, you already explained why the oil has nothing to do
Right. Right.
with that. But
Yes.
also, as Marco Rubio said clearly, if another country becomes a threat
That's
to
right.
American interest, we have the duty to intervene. So this
That's
was
right.
not simply liberation of Venezuela for the freedom of Venezuela, it was also a protection from United States, consider the traffic of drugs and the proximity of Venezuela to the United States. Many people don't
Right.
know how close it is just to Miami and the coast of Florida. So
That's right.
can you explain, as someone who is both Venezuelan and American, besides the joy, of course, of freedom, what
Right.
what this regime meant to America?
Yeah. Well, okay, so a lot of people don't know this, but Hugo Chavez in back in 2004 became kind of buddy buddies with Ahmadinejad from Iran. And they started because of what he did to the oil industry, he kind of became friends with them so that they could, you know, I guess exchange oil or do whatever because obviously America was out, right? But in exchange, Iran started bringing these mysterious things to Venezuela via airplanes. I mean, they would literally land at the airport. They had their own terminal. Nobody really knew what was happening, but they knew that these flights from Tehran kept going on in Caracas, back and forth. I had people on the ground that would tell me that they thought that they saw missiles maybe coming in. They didn't really know what was going on, but they also brought along terrorists. So terrorists were coming to Venezuela. They did training camps, Hezbollah training camps in Venezuela.
Mm.
Now, you're asking, well, why would this be a danger to America? Well, if you have training Hezbollah training camps in Venezuela and you have what may be missiles in Venezuela, what do you think could happen? It can't be good, right? And so not only was Iran doing these horrific, nefarious things into Venezuela, but Hugo Chavez and then Maduro had Iranians even in their own cabinet. So they were very enthralled in the government of Venezuela, the Iranians, and also Russia had a lot of interest in Venezuela, the oil, of course, and then China. So my question is, if China, Russia, Iran, Cuba were all running Venezuela, what is so bad about us running Venezuela instead of them? Like, why would that not be America first? That's my question. So I feel like this is the best thing that has happened to the Western Hemisphere in I don't know how long. I mean, I feel like we are much safer now that we don't have these enemies there. If we can get the Chavistas out of Venezuela or out of the government, I should say, because they'll probably still stay there, of course. But if we can make sure that the government of Venezuela is an ally, is a friend, both politically and economically with the United States, how could that not be America first?
Mhm.
I agree with
Great.
you, Debbie. And just following up on what you mentioned, you was perfect transition into my next question about the various countries that are involved in Venezuela or were involved. The first question is, do you think that the Russians, the Chinese, and the Iranians knew that President Trump was going to take out Maduro? And the second question is, what are the consequences for the US relations with those countries
Mm.
now that Maduro has left? Considering all that you just stated, that Russia, Iran, and China had so many interests, potentially sending weapons, terrorists, whatever they were doing. So what's the big picture?
Well, I don't think they knew. And
Mhm.
one reason I don't think they knew is that the Chinese, that what somebody from China, the delegation from China, was literally meeting with Maduro the very day he was taken down.
Okay,
So, so I don't think China had a clue that this was going to happen. I mean, I think it was very stealthy, kind of like what happened in Iran with the nuclear facility. I think Trump just goes in, boom, boom, takes it out. He doesn't tell anybody because he can't really. It can't. This is not something. This would have been very dangerous if the Chinese, if Russia, if Iran had known about it. I mean, it would have been
Yeah.
extremely dangerous. So no, I don't think they knew about it. As far as our relations with those countries now, I think they're gonna, first of all, I think they do respect Trump. I think they're afraid of Trump. And
Mhm.
that is a good thing. I mean, is it not a good thing that these dictators and these horrific world leaders that are just tyrants, don't you think it's a good thing when they're scared of our president? I mean, I think it's great.
you know what
I
they say? Respect comes through love or fear.
That's right.
If they
That's
don't love
right.
you, better than fear you.
That's right. Well, and a lot of times, yeah, respect does come out of fear as well. I think that, if Trump, see, the thing about Trump is that if he says he's going to do something, he does it. He's kind of like the CEO of a corporation. He doesn't run America like a politician, because I guarantee you if he did, we would be talking about, this Venezuela thing for years and nothing would happen. But Trump goes in there, he's like, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I told you that I was going to be America first, and I'm going to do this because I see the other thing about presidents of America really is, and I don't really understand the mentality, I guess because I have, loyalties in both countries, maybe, I don't know. But as an American, I want a president that not only is good with domestic policy, but is also amazing in foreign policy, because we don't live in a vacuum and we cannot be isolationists. We have to know what people are doing around us. We have to be able to protect our country from our enemies, because we have a lot of them. Unfortunately, some of them are in our country already, and that's another story. But we need to be able to say a good president is one that has our backs, and not just domestically, not just economically, but in foreign policy. And I
Mhm.
think Trump checks all those boxes.
Definitely. And in this respect, what do you think about the European Union attitude, sorry, toward the United States of America? Are they followers, but are they coherent followers while they implement socialist policies within? So, just for example, we have this. Even Italy, while they align with Trump policies, then they defend Ukraine, this never-ending funding of Ukraine and Zelensky, and they try to make it an ideological support. How do you interpret European Union in comparison, like in relation to the United States when it comes to policies like the one Ukraine-Russia?
Well, I'm not an expert at that. I really don't, I don't follow the European
Yeah.
Union much. But I do know that the leftist policy, for example, they never, now they might be, decrying the, oh, human rights violations or international law violations, but they never really had a problem when Maduro was torturing political prisoners. I do believe that left
Exactly.
right wing ideology is at play,
Yeah.
and I don't really understand the whole Ukraine Russia thing, because that's very complex. That kind
Mhm.
of goes beyond the scope of the left right, because they're probably both left. But it is interesting how in Europe, for example, the left defends these tyrants, and I don't really quite understand the reason. I really don't. That kind of baffles my mind as well.
So, Debbie, about the left, let's go domestically now. What's your message to the left, to the leftist members of Congress, the Democrats in general, who are basically pontificating openly about the violation of international law, about taking Maduro and the president's foreign policy in general, and the protesters in cities like my hometown of Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, other Democrat-run cities? What is your message to these people about why you think what President Trump did in Venezuela was appropriate, justified, and safeguards both people on the left and the right in Venezuela and in the United States?
Well, it's really hard to tell these people anything. As you know, they're dug in. But I
Yeah.
think that their Trump derangement syndrome has blinded them from seeing what actually is happening and the fact that it is a good thing for America to not have these enemies in our backyard.
Yeah.
But I do think that they never said anything about Obama when he did anything that way, right? They were very silent about international law when it came to Obama. But so I do think it's pure ideology. I don't really think that they think this. I think the reason that they're saying this is because they don't like Trump and they don't want to give Trump any credit when it comes to, being a good president,
Mhm.
protecting our country because that's what the federal government is supposed to do. They're supposed to protect us from enemies, foreign and domestic, but it just so happens that they're the domestic enemies. So I think that they want to protect the foreign enemies as well. I mean, that's what it looks like to me anyway.
No, very well said, because we certainly have a division problem in America on basically every aspect or simple or complex policy. And fortunately for people, because of people like you trying to explain these very complicated situations, we can close that gap between the left and the right, especially in the United States.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you
and
so much. I just have a
yeah.
last question for you because you have been so vocal about trying to warn Americans from the signs of socialism taking over, right? You mentioned the statues so that they were destroyed or voter fraud and many other examples. Now that we finally have back President Trump in power with a new administration, can we be confident that the future will not shift in the socialist direction and we can keep this wave for 2028 and over?
Well, we have to, as patriots, we have to make sure that our elections are safe and secure because I believe that the left will steal elections just like they did in Venezuela to keep power. I do believe that. I truly do. I'm not just saying that. I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist or anything like that. But I do know that they want to keep power and they'll do it any way that they can. And the elections are probably the most important thing we can guard as patriots. So that's important going forward. I also saw in Venezuela the polarization of people, the patriots and the Chavistas. I mean, it just became so bad. Even in families, families wouldn't talk to each other. And I'm seeing the
Happens in
same
America too.
exact yeah, I'm seeing the same exact thing here. We're becoming so polarized, even within families. You can't have Thanksgiving with this family or that family member because you don't agree politically. I mean, it's just gotten so bad. So, unfortunately, these signs they're happening, and we just have to guard against it because we cannot allow America to become Venezuela 2.0. As Trump has said, we just can't allow it to happen. So we've got to make sure that we keep our elections fair, that we have all the mechanisms to ensure that we don't have any cheating, so that we don't lose our country.
Amen to that. Thank you so much, Debbie, for this wonderful, wonderful conversation. I'm very instructive for everybody. And where people can find you?
Well, they can find me at Deborah66 in on Twitter. They can go there and follow me there. We are also still promoting our movie, The Dragon's Prophecy. So that's the dragonsprophecyfilm.com. It's going to be on streaming platforms. I think iTunes and Amazon Prime. So check it out. It's an awesome movie that we just did not too long ago. And thank you again for having me on. It was such a pleasure to be with the two of you. And when you're back in America, we have to have dinner.
That's a plan.
Yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thanks so much again, Debbie. Looking forward to seeing you
thank
soon.
you.
And
Thank
don't
you.
forget to watch Dragon Prophecy. All of your movies are just incredible. Thank you so much. See you soon for dinner.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye bye.